Okay, we're checking out tract 34. So we've got it here. Let me see if I can move the map a little bit. Tract 34 is about a 10-acre property. It's essentially square. It's about 660 feet on each side. We've got it zoomed in here. We've got a pink overlay on it just so it pops out a little more when we're zoomed out, but we can remove that overlay anytime if it gets distracting here. So the purple lines you see are the easement road system at the tracks at White River, and the blue lines or the blue areas that you see, we've turned on the layer for essentially surface water is what it's called, and so it's showing us its idea of where the little creek beds are on the property. And it usually bases that off of a topo map. So if we go to the topo map, excuse me, you can see that the water areas pretty closely mirror what the topo thinks are the creek beds. Now this is the older topo. This was made in the 50s probably. Let's try a modern topo. And that's pretty similar. So either or. So on this property, there are 36 tracts out here total. This is tract 34, like we said, very private toward the southeast part of the little development out here. And out of the 36 tracts, there's a small number that have what we would be tempted to call live water, as far as a small creek that runs most of the year. But tract 34 happens to be one of those few tracts that has what we would be somewhat comfortable calling live water. We don't like to call anything a year-round creek or a year-round stream, because it seems like as soon as we do, then that thing dries up for the first time in 30 years. It's happened before, so we call just about everything a wet weather creek or a wet weather stream, other than the big major rivers like the White River, which is about a mile west of here. That's a year-round river. It has been for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's a beautiful, beautiful river. We can talk about that later, or we go into depth in that in the other videos. But to focus back on tract 34, let's actually turn that overlay off for a second, and we'll focus in on that topo map. Okay, because that shows it quite well. So the topo map is showing us the blue lines at the bottom of these small valleys. And if you notice on tract 34, you actually have several blue lines that come together. So most of the creeks in the Ozarks are spring fed. The White River itself, I guess you could say is essentially spring fed, but most of the smaller creeks and rivers definitely are. Excuse me again. And they're spring fed because these little springs within the hillside join up and start to create their creek beds, flow into one another, and then end up in a major river like the White River to the west here. So because we know that there's quite often water in this creek bed on tract 34, we can make a somewhat educated guess that somewhere in this very near area, we've got some kind of live springs. So whether that be, like an artesian well, as they say, that kind of bubbles up out of the ground, those are fairly rare actually. The springs you're more likely to see are seeping out of the hillsides within the valleys and down into the creek bed, whether they're a third of the way up or whether they're at the base of the valley and coming right into the creek bed that way. That's where you'll see most springs, or that's where we've seen most springs. So good chance if you're to hunt around on tract 34, you'll find one or more of those type of springs on the property. You might also find a small cave or a huge cave. There are caves in the area. We have not explored any of these tracks really in the valley areas, and that's where you would generally look for undiscovered caves, but it happens all the time, so that's kind of exciting. Tract 34 is extremely private. You'll have to watch the videos, but I think we have some pretty good videos that show the property. I know we have at least one drone video. I know we have at least one ground video. And it's just really cool down by the creeks. It's like a whole different environment when you get down to the eastern part of this property down by the creek beds. It's really, really neat. as far as hunting, white-tailed deer, wild turkey, prevalent in the area. You can hunt for both on your property. As far as camping or even building a little cabin, you can certainly do that. You'll want to check out the property covenants, which we think are pretty basic on these tracts or any outcast tracts. You'll have a 50-foot setback from the easement roads for building, camping, parking, pretty much anything. You've got to get back 50 feet, and that creates kind of a privacy buffer, which is one of the reasons why we're able to have so few restrictions on these properties, is because we have kind of a privacy buffer, so that no one's parking right up by the road and kind of making it feel crowded out here. You're likely, if you come out here, to be able to spend a few days or a few weeks and maybe not even see another person. So a lot of these tracts will be sold to hunters who may come and use it during hunting season, but the thing about hunters is rarely do they just have one property where they hunt. So some hunter might buy one or more of these tracts, and they might only come and hunt it once every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because they've likely got some hunting land in Tennessee and maybe northern Missouri and maybe out in Montana. And so that's what we've noticed about the hunters that we work with, is seldom do they have one single property where they rely on using that for hunting. It certainly can happen, and there's a lot of hunters that do that, but we certainly deal with a lot of people who have multiple properties. So it's never going to be crowded out here. You'll always be able to find a peaceful spot on your property. As we look at Tract 34, the lowest point will be down here where the creek beds are, especially down here where the creek beds come together. And the highest point will be at the north side, where that easement road comes in, which is the middle of a ridge, and the west side where the easement road comes in, which is the middle of a wide ridge. As far as sites for building or camping, you actually have a lot of options, but if you wanted a site with the maximum amount of level usable area, I would guess that this area right in here would be a pretty good bet. That's off the easement road, and it's, 50 feet on this map is just not very far. So once you get back into this area, you're already well beyond the setback. And looking at the contour lines, it's basically telling us that this portion of the property is essentially flat, essentially level. So you'd have to really get out there and lay eyes on it to know for sure, but that's certainly what the topo map is telling us. And even as you go down easterly, there's quite a bit of distance between these contour lines, which is indicating that this is not a steep drop by any means here. In fact, if you were to walk down this, you could probably stop at just about any point and it would look fairly level. But again, I'm basing that only on the topo map. They're quite accurate most of the time. A few times we've noticed that topo maps have not been correct. Now, as you go toward, say, the valley, either one of these valleys on the north side, now look how these contour lines are much closer. So that's indicating that that's a much steeper area, which always makes sense in a valley, especially if you have the blue line indicating some kind of, potential water at the bottom there. So let's go back to the aerial map. I think we've already been on the aerial. Well, yeah, we have. So heavily wooded. As we zoom in, the trees are so thick that you really can't even see the creek beds, but they are down there. Got all different types of species of trees on this property, mostly hardwoods from what we're seeing. And we'll zoom out quickly and show you where this is in relation to the White River. There we go. So there you can see the White River, which is just a little over a mile west of the property. You'll probably come in on Lock 3 Road, the northern part of Lock 3 Road. Lock 3 Road is a county road, but you still do need a four-wheel drive because Lock 3 Road, the county road, as well as the purple roads, the easement roads, all are minimum maintenance roads. So you do want a four-wheel drive to access any of the properties out here. The White River access, you can see that. There are train tracks that run along the east side of the White River in this area. So there's very limited access to the river, but because this particular area used to be the launch for a ferry that went back and forth across the river, because of that, when they did the train tracks in the early 1900s, they had to create a tunnel, a short, very short tunnel, so that the ferry passengers could still come and go. And it's still there, and it still looks great. In fact, I think within the concrete on the tunnel, it says 1901 or 1905, something like that. And you can drive your vehicle basically right under the train tracks if you want to, a short little tunnel, and then there is a concrete slab that extends out into the river and down to the river. It looks like a boat launch. I don't know if it had to do with the actual ferry launch, or if it was added later as a boat launch, but you can check that out in some of the videos as well on the main page. So in the interest of not going too long with this, we'll go ahead and cut this video short. But go ahead and check out the drone video, check out the ground video, check out the pictures, check out the interactive map. There'll be a map very similar to this on the listing page for this property. It might not specifically have the pink labels saying Tract 34 at White River, but it will have the different track numbers. You'll be able to see what's what with that map as well. You can zoom way out. You can see the town of Batesville, Arkansas, which is the largest nearby town. It's about 10 miles southeast of this property. In fact, the White River goes southerly and then southeast and goes right through Batesville. But beautiful area, a lot of public land within just a few miles. If you need additional hunting land, you've got thousands and thousands of acres actually within just a few miles to the north of here. Probably to the south as well, but definitely to the north. So talking quickly, trying to fit a lot of information in. Do check out the listing page. If you have any questions, please give us a call. Please send us an email. We would love to talk to you about this property if it's still available. If it's not, we would love to let you know what we have and what might be coming up. It's been harder and harder for us to find property the last couple of years. As you may know, the demand has skyrocketed. Owner-financed land, hunting land, any kind of rural land has always been in demand. But these last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, people have kind of woken up and realized that the Ozarks are a great value for properties. So we're still undervalued compared to the rest of the country, but at some point we just won't be anymore. So get your property while you can before we start to match the property values of Tennessee and Illinois and Iowa and all the other nearby states. So if you have any questions, let us know. We would love to hear from you.